Good morning and welcome back. Welcome to another edition of Why I Can't Get to My Stuff. 05 GMC, I alluded to in the last video about the exhaust cutouts that one of the transmission lines popped out of the clip and then it was stuck on the pitman arm on this side, and every time they turned the wheel it sawed the line back and forth until it snapped it. I did a patch, get it up on the lift, yeah, etc. I've already cheated. If you've never done one of these before on a GMT 800, these are the clips that hold that upper panel right there in, flathead screwdriver in there, pop it out, pull them out. For the grill, there's a 10mm headed bolt here, and then there's 3 clips each side, and you just pull on them and pop it out. That's out. Sitting over there on top of my scrap pile for a later date. Right now we're about to make a mess, and I'm going to undo my transmission lines at the cooler, at the radiator, and somebody's already wondering probably, well, it's only one line, why are you taking both off? Glad you asked. We're going to put something really nice on the truck. Got this kit from Glenn's Auto Performance. No, he didn't pay me to say this, but I like their products, so I always plug them and give them props. Really nice detailed instructions. The main thing was the lines are already pre-made, meaning they're cut to length, and the ends are already on them for you. You got your fittings. These are transmission, obviously. These have that inverted flare here going the TruCool 40K. Now I do want to note, this will not work with a factory cooler. This is intended to work with the TruCool 40K. He's got them with his logo on them. As you can see right there, instructions, great marketing on his part. This one on this truck is actually, I want to say out of a Ford F-250 or F-350, or maybe a diesel excursion. Like 2006, somewhere in that range. Certain ones have this nice bracket set up. As you can see, I got 3 points of contact. I didn't get one here. That's something for a later date. I was gonna get another piece here and tap it into this, and then nut and bolt it here, so it's got all 4 points, but you can see it don't really move around very much, so I just sent it. But without further ado, that's the tool of choice for me for getting these little clips out here at the cooler connection. Get in there like so, and I usually like to get my hand on it so that doesn't go flying to where I can't find it. I'm not going to need that, but nevertheless I didn't want it going flying all over the place. Put that out of my way, and again on to the next. They're very basic. They can be a pain sometimes, but this little tool, they're cheap. Doesn't have to be a snap-on, it can be something generic. Be sure these are generic. Yeah, they're not even branded. More than likely they're a Harbor Freight deal. Let's be honest here. Yep. And that one's out. And I will move on to the 2 in the radiator. Alright, I'll come back when we've got this thing in the air, because we're going to have to do the same process with these clips to get it out of the transmission case. And I've got to get all these fittings changed out as well. Alright, so we're up in the air. We've been here before, and right in there is my space to work. This is going to be the least enjoyable part of this entire job. Got my handy dandy pick, got to go in there, get those clips out, and I can start the process of removing the lines, which also is going to not be fun, but because I'm not reusing them, if they give me too much trouble, I will just cut them and throw them in the garbage, because at this point I really don't care. So without further ado, I'm going to get to work. One out. This is probably the worst part of the job because of the limited room to get in there and get these. Fun fact, takes an 18mm wrench. I used the combination, used a 3/8 drive socket on a ratchet, wedged in there to break it loose, and then I couldn't really turn it much because I was afraid it was going to be pushed against the floor of the truck where I couldn't get it out, so I had to switch to the open end wrench. They do eventually get to a point where you can unthread them by hand, but just figured that was noteworthy. On to the next. Hopefully that one's easier now that the bottom one is out of the way, and then we can get to installing the new fittings, and I've still got to get the lines out of the way and undone from the truck, which shouldn't take long because, like I said earlier, I'm just going to tear through that with reckless abandon. So without further ado, going to get back to work. So like clockwork, it is now lightly raining. Get all the lines out. These fittings to note that go in the TruCool that take the factory lines. You can see the inverted flare. I bought a kit that had a bracket and these fittings and a few other odds and ends. I don't know, they're different than the ones in the transmission. The ones in the transmission don't have that flare, and they're actually a smaller size. So I'm sure they exist, but there's no markings or part numbers for these for people looking to use factory lines. Sorry. All right, moving on, we have these two silver fittings here. They come in the Glenn's Performance Kit. Get them out of the bag. And no, I don't have one of them fancy AN fitting and line wrenches, so coincidentally 18mm like a glove on them. I'm gonna get them installed, and I've got to get the two up in the case of the transmission, and we can start routing the lines, and I'll zip tie them out of the way. And then I've just got to refill the transmission because we did make a slight mess. I can show you that. So yes, the truck is bleeding, and there's all the old lines. So this is actually the one that come with that kit, that ferrule there to modify it. Somebody Central Florida is trying to use factory lines and wants to put a TruCool 40K on their truck. I'll give you this modified line and I'll give you those fittings. Hit me up. You can have them for free, and it will get you where you need to go as far as that. All right, with that said, let me get myself back to work here because it sounds like it's going to rain harder. And if I'm under the truck, well, it is what it is. I don't mind getting a little wet, but I'm not trying to get soaked. Well, that escalated quickly. No sooner than I turned the camera off, the sky opened up. So thought, oh, I can work under the truck. No, it's running off of the truck, hitting the lift, and just gushing at me. So I retreated to the garage. I'm gonna sit here and watch it rain for a little bit and hope there's some sort of a break in this. If not, yeah, I may be screwed. That way I'm seeing a break in the clouds, so hoping for the best. Stay tuned. So the sky is kind of clear and the sun's trying to come out. Of course it is. Damage is done. I'm soaking wet and irritable, but I kept working through it. 11/16 is the end for the AN fitting to thread them on. 19mm is what got the fittings into the transmission. There's a crush washer. Two things: ample lighting and patience. And of course, it's a given, don't over tighten them because they're only aluminum, and so is the case. But what I mentioned earlier, patience and lighting will help you get the braided lines onto the fittings in the transmission without stripping them. You got to be careful of that. It will happen. And then again, don't over tighten them. 18mm is what put the fittings into the TruCool 40K trans cooler. Fit like a glove. I just like to mention sizes, so if you're going to do this, you could literally watch this video, grab some tools, and have 99% of it and get right to work and not be back and forth, back and forth. So let me show you what I got going on. So the step ladder here. Those are our fittings. They're seated. Tighten them up. I'm going to bring the lines up to them now. But before I do that, let me show you everything. In the instructions, they're very specific about the routing. So as you can see in there, kind of, sort of, there's the lines. They go up near the starter, come down. Would be over the steering rack, but it's a four-wheel drive. So we come over the axle, over the steering. I'm going to have to zip tie them probably somewhere where my hand is in here to keep them off the steering and away from the idler for the AC compressor. All right, that is pretty much that. These being PTFE 2, they will fit with a little bit of persuasion, and this factory clip here says that in the instructions. That's a benefit of them. They still have the big enough orifice size in here. You're not going to be able to see that, no light, but as per se, them steel lines, they're just smaller this way, which makes them easier to route. They're not as fat. You can keep them away from the exhaust and anything that's going to grab them and pinch them or rip them. So that's a major plus. This part of it, working up in here, getting the old fittings out and getting the new ones in the lines, that's the worst part of the job. There's no room to work. On a two-wheel drive, I would say drop the transmission cross member and let the transmission and oil pan and everything sag a little bit to give you a little more room, but on the four-wheel drive, not really as much of an option with the transfer case, the torsion bars, all that stuff. So let me get these lines threaded on up here, and then we'll come back. All right, lines are all on and tight at the fittings. Now to deal with this. By this, I just mean these lines. They give you plenty extra, so they're slack. And I'm going to zip tie them out of the way and go from there. I'll come back when everything's zip tied up, and then I'm just going to put the skid plate and front dust shield on up here, and then of course the grill and the upper cowl panel that sits on top of the core support and the grill. Home stretch, home stretch. The weather was a minor setback, but I need to quit talking because, as you can see, more clouds are starting to roll in. It was like that and sunny a minute ago, and here we are with this crap again. So if you don't know, it looks like Florida's staring down another hurricane potentially next week. Yay. Okay, I always want to remain transparent and admit when I made a mistake. I caught it, but if you see where my lines are, when I went to put that dust panel on that goes to the cross member here, yeah, how's that going to work out for me? They need to go over the top. So I'm going to have to cut that zip tie right there, and I'm going to have to undo the lines and run them around the top. That is a bummer, but just wanted to point that out. Somebody might have been watching earlier and said, what is he doing? Why is that like that? So that's why, because I'm tired and I'm frustrated. So I miss things like that. So don't be a dummy like me and make sure you route yours over the top of this, not under. All right, we're all back together. Show you here. That cover I spoke of, why I relocated those lines above that cross member. Skid plate, this isn't a Z71. Z71s come with them, but fun fact, the holes are there and pre-tapped, so I took this off a truck in the junkyard. I think they looked at it and were like, you can have that. So I got that and the hardware and everything for nothing. Come home, slapped it on. Yep. Nice little addition to an otherwise ordinary truck. All right, let me quit talking. We're gonna get all my tools and associated crap out from under the truck. we'll lower it down, and I can put the grill and the upper cowl panel there in, if that's what you want to call it. All right, hang tight with me. All right, there you have it. Obviously the TruCool 40K was already installed, but that's the line install. Pretty well complete. I'm going to have to take it for a ride, get it up to temperature, get the fluid levels correct, and it's a done deal. But hopefully you enjoyed. That's a wrap. What's the beauty of this line kit was everything was pre-made. All the ends were on. It's not terribly hard, but if I had had to do that today with the weather and everything, yeah, I'd have been screwed. So very nice to have everything pre-made. One thing some people won't like, there's a dispute. It's like 50-50. Keep the factory cooler that runs through the radiator or don't. This line eliminates that. I'm not too worried about it. That cooler is way bigger than the joke of a stock one. Yes, the truck has bigger tires, but I already re-geared it with 410s from 342, so that helps a little bit. Take a little stress off the transmission. It's not raced, it doesn't tow heavy trailers, it's just a commuter vehicle and a get out of trouble vehicle in inclement weather here. With the tires on it and a little bit that it was leveled and raised up, it should be able to go through about anything to get my parents to safety. That's why I put this thing together for them. I wanted them to have something newer, lower miles, and with their health problems, if there was anything going on, they could get to safety. So we're gonna do a payoff video on this real soon, I promise. I've got some more cosmetic things to fix here and there. There's a tear in the seat. I'm gonna replace that seat bun and seat cover. You can get them on eBay from what I've seen, maybe a few other sources. I got to do some more research. There's a little bit of paint touch up here and there, and the headliner is sagging, typical. And then, like I said, we're gonna wash this thing and buff it up real nice and do a payoff video on it and show what we've done. And I should have some old pictures probably on my Instagram that I'll try and find and link to that video showing what we started with, where we came from. So basically this was a $1,500 truck that ran really good, but was from up north and very rusty and needed a lot of love, we'll just say. But it was still cost effective in the end with me doing the labor. I'm gonna stop rambling. At the end here, I'll link to the video where I made my own lines for the TruCool 40K with a 4L80 and my two-wheel drive regular cab short bed truck. You can check that out. That was about a year ago. So then you can kind of see both perspectives of it. As always, I appreciate you hanging in there with me. If you enjoy what you've seen, hit the like button, ring the bell to subscribe so you get notifications. Thanks again.